The response by the U.S. to Hurricane Maria was really slow and really poor. One of the major impacts of Hurricane Maria is that their electrical service was disrupted, in some cases, for almost a year.
We got to work really quickly, and we started autogestación and just, you know, reaching out to your neighbors, see what you need, how can I help?
When it comes to the great resiliencies of how to deal with catastrophe, you know, it's something that we naturally engage in, maybe as part of our DNA. It's a great part of who we are.
But if there was another disaster, and I can help, I'm helping. I believe if you can cook and you have the tools to do it and people are hungry, it's in you. That's your hospitality. I believe anybody in my shoes would have done the same. So if that happens again, we're here. Yo crecí en un área que se llama Isla Verde. Y de pequeño pues hice de todo, hice muchos deportes, cuántos deportes hay. Obviamente al tener la playa atrás pues me encanta surfear. No soy bueno haciéndolo, pero me encanta, eso no le quita. Mi abuela estaba cocinando, pero cocinaba para 30, tú sabes, y pues como somos aquí en Puerto Rico, no todo el mundo es tan puntual, tú sabes. Llegaba el primero, llegaba el segundo, y cada vez que alguien llegaba, pues vamos a probar las habichuelas, y mi abuela gritando, mi abuela por parte de padre, gritando, no está listo, no se metan en la olla, no se metan, ¿sabes? Pero it was just an ongoing thing the whole day. Eating there it was just something different. She made my mom's wedding cake and her wedding dress. It's that type of woman, you know, like, wow, you're like, oh God, how does she have those many skills?
He's dedicating time to Puerto Rico's cuisine and, you know, his angle, you know, on reviving some of these elements that become obscure, you know, and they're parts of the culture, but they're not in the everyday menus, not there because they're complicated preparations or perhaps, you know, they're not popular, so they're a little harder to market, you know, for the public. And I think he did lots of those things, actually, very, very efficiently so. I met Jose Enrique because his father was my neighbor right across, the house right across from ours. We both attended the same culinary school, and lots of people recognize, you know, Jose Enrique's ability to improvise, a trait that every chef should have. It's something that I think speaks of, you know, resiliency and the creativity required to live in the tropics.
This is like the place where I started surfing.
Right?
Yeah.
Aviones. I never
Aviones.
surfed, but this is certainly the place where I always came for alcapurrias or fritters.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
So, I don't know, you want to go grab a bite?
That sounds terrific.
Let's do it.
Cocina Criolla is about lots of flavors, intensity, cilantro, sofrito, salty sweet.
Buena.
Sigue echando para acá. Ahí está. Venga. Ay, cucú.
In its origins, as I met piononos, right? It's a ripe plantain that lengthwise has been sliced into like a 1/4-inch slice, fried, and then it's been kind of like twisted to form kind of like a circle. It's held with a toothpick in its origins. It is filled with ground beef, and then it's actually dipped in a batter, flour, water, and seasoning batter. You dip it in there, and then you fry it.
Right now in Condado, I'm doing a bacalaíto. So I had a customer come and say, oh, you know, we call it ciego, which is kind of saying like it's blind because
because what he meant was like, you know, there's not enough salted cod in there.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? You're completely right. And it's just, I was raised like that, you know? So that's how I make it.
And it has become such an expensive commodity that, you know, probably that's what prompted a little less bacalao. So you get the, you know, a little bacalao gives you a lot of flavor because of this concentration.
I'm working on it.
Right,
but I
right.
want to do a dish with just like a whole, like a chunk of bacalao, fresh cod. Just to say like, okay, that didn't have any, now here's a lot of bacalao in there.
Well, let me
know?
tell you,
I'm working
creativity
on
and
it.
is, you know, creativity is a work in progress.
Salud.
Salud.
We are all about plantains, so it's all about green plantains, ripe plantains, middle, in between plantains. So we can make mofongo, or we can make piononos, or we can make tostones, or we can make arañitas, and the list goes on and on and on of everything you can do with a plantain in any of its states of ripeness.
The plantain's got the 3 stages, right? It's green, and that's what you use when you make tostones, which is basically you cut it in rounds and you deep fry it, then you smash it and you throw it back in the oil at a higher temperature, and then you get that crisp, beautiful tostón. So you have all these things that you can make out of the plantain, you know? It's like, catch it when it's unripe. Don't worry about it if it gets ripe, because you'll use it also. Pedro Alcor, we worked together for like 5 years. This guy has such a unique energy. For me, when you meet people like that, you need to get them close, because it's like, wow, where does this guy come from? The longaniza that I use here from Pedro is flavors that I designed. I was like, so I want orange skin in there, and I want other things that's just not the regular flavor. So he designed that, and you know, it ends up being just a little unique for me to serve in the restaurant.
Hay una relación directa en la evolución del viaje que ha tenido ese embutido a través del tiempo y pues, los diferentes países, y a través de los conquistadores en América. Es un producto, una preparación entonces que llega aquí a Puerto Rico. La longaniza es un producto de nuestra tradición, que eso es lo que yo vengo aprendiendo, a valorizar la tradición. La longaniza puertorriqueña se caracteriza principalmente de cerdo y el aceite de achote. Esas semillas tú las pones en aceite y transmiten el color, el pigmento que tiene la semilla por su naturaleza, lo pasan al aceite. En Puerto Rico era una planta endémica. De hecho, los taínos lo utilizaban en el embellecimiento ceremonial de sus cuerpos y en momentos de batalla. Trabajando en un restaurante con un chef como José Enrique, que valoriza la cultura puertorriqueña con el producto. Las tradiciones son nuestra mejor arma, donde nosotros nos podemos agarrar y sostener.
Es una variedad casi roja. Ahora mismo está como violeta, azulosa, y le encanta este terroir, esta condición de clima. Cada variedad pues tiene su área. Sí. Increíblemente, Puerto Rico, aun siendo una isla pequeña, tiene un montón de microclimas alrededor de la isla.
Sí, me imagino, aquí están los mogotes aquí mismo, ¿no?
Ahí.
Corriendo. Sí.
El huracán nos azota y sencillamente se apagó las luces y vámonos. La finca fue inundada, pérdida total. Decidimos reconstruir y decidimos recoger los pedazos y no rendirnos, levantarnos y seguir hacia adelante. Entro un día al laboratorio, honestamente estaba preocupado y no sabía qué íbamos a hacer. Y fue un momento que le dicen, un momento de lucidez, que se le prende la bombilla a uno. Sí. Y veo estos 3 clavos que habíamos encontrado en la finca de caña, que eran los 3 clavos, unos clavos del tren de la caña que le daba la vuelta a Puerto Rico. Veo los 3 clavos allí puestos.
No me jodas.
Y básicamente vi los Tres Clavos y vi el nombre Tres Clavos y miré unos rones cañas que habíamos estado haciendo y dije, pues vamos a hacer unos rones cañas. We only use Puerto Rican fruits for our fruit-infused rum, Tres Clavos. We use only fresh fruits from local farmers. So we're helping the local agriculture and helping the local small guy.
Now there's a whole new wave of people flavoring those. So then you're going to have like passion fruit pitorro, or you have like all these flavors, coconut pitorro. And one of the things that really surprises me is the fact that it is illegal, you know, to actually sell moonshine, right? Or sell pitorro. But it is readily available all over the place. So you go to the countryside, and there's pitorro advertised. It's right there. You know, it's not like you're hiding in a back room or anything like that, you know, like right there.
What was interesting about Don Pepon and Pepe Alvarez, the fact that he's got the heirloom varieties and you know, here from Puerto Rico, and they've been here forever, and it's like he's been able to weed out which grow best and which are best for his product. It's beautiful. You know, what he's doing there is all passion. That quality of sugarcane juice and making that into the rum gives it a whole different flavor. All right, so we get to taste a little bit.
Playroom. This is where we do all the tinkering and all the trials, and for each product we develop, we make 20, 30 tests of different profiles. We usually end up picking the first, which is crazy. Salud. This is a 2-year-old Rompepon. It's been aged 2 years in American oak barrels.
It's beautiful. I guess I think of it as gold because it's, you know, it's like, I don't know, will the Three Kings bring me this thing? You know what I'm saying? It's lujoso. Puerto Maltés es un lujo.
You know, Puerto Rico has one of the worst GDP to GNP ratios of any country or territory in the world. Only about 70% of the value that's created in Puerto Rico actually stays in Puerto Rico, whereas, you know, most countries are in the 90s. So Pepe's efforts are an attempt to localize the value that's created by, you know, cultivation in Puerto Rico.
Canistel.
Yo nunca lo he probado.
¿No? ¿Quieren probar una?
Por favor.
It's so good.
¿Es dulce o es?
Es dulce, pero es como que seco. La pulpa es seca.
¿Esto es familia del corazón?
I have no idea. It was so good. Pues esto es de guayama, igual que los mamey zapote. Y esta semana tenemos los tomates que vienen de un productor nuevo. Sacó 200 libras de tomate. Los plátanos de Ponce, las parchas y cocos de Patilla.
You know, Daniela, I feel like right now she's doing exactly what I, for me as a restaurateur or like a cook wants. She's basically gotten to a place where you have all these other farmers that are coming together, and then she's figured out a way to get the transportation down here. Yo no me acuerdo cómo conocí a Daniela, no me acuerdo quién me la presentó. I think it started off with arugula. Those thick, heavy leaves, like peppery, but you know, it's got pungent, it's flavor, and she brought those in, and I'm like, oh, that's it. You know, like the lemon juice, olive oil, salt, you know, leave it, it's beautiful. So from there on, she started bringing other things, and that's how it grew. Bringing in that quality, which I was searching for, and I'm like, that's the greens I want.
He was probably the only chef anywhere who would actually serve a big salad on your plate and actually, like, it wasn't just a garnish like in other places. feel that our ingredients are very much a reflection of who we are and where we come from. So we have a lot of indigenous ingredients like yuca and yautía or pineapples, piñas. They're native to Puerto Rico. But then now you have a lot of European influences and other plants that weren't necessarily here when our Indians were here. And we're kind of like this melting pot of those different cultures. In regenerative agriculture, we'll actually take a lot of influences from indigenous communities. We actually replicate a lot of what the Taínos used to do in their conucos. They didn't have agrochemicals to depend on, so they really had to work with nature and emulating nature. Permaculture, where everything has more than one function. So all of these practices of companion planting and terracing and harmonizing the three-dimensionality of a farm and having it work for you in different ways in order to attract pollinizer or attract birds who are part of your pest control. Like all of these things are things that indigenous communities used to do. The fact that we've been a colony for 500 years has affected the history of farming, prices of everything in Puerto Rico, and not just agricultural products, but really everything that gets imported is this act called the Jones Act.
Well, the Jones Maritime Act limits commercial trade with Puerto Rico to boats that were manufactured in the United States and have a high percentage of crew members who are U.S. citizens. And so that limits Puerto Rico's ability to have any sort of trade or economic import-export relationship with other countries besides the U.S. And it also set up a very convenient trade situation for the U.S. because it was a kind of a dry run for North American Free Trade Agreement in which all the goods that were shipped to the U.S. Did not have any tariffs on them. And the U.S. was able to dump a lot of its excess production on Puerto Rican consumers.
If you control people's food and what they eat and also how they make a living, you control their lives. Jose Enrique, he's the type of chef who doesn't necessarily have a fixed menu. So he'll really work with what's in season and with what's available and really highlight the product.
My cooking is give me the product and I'm gonna try and not mess it up. Stemming from that is the fact that, well, what came in today? Well, this is the best thing that came in today. So that's what's gonna go on the menu. So that's where it comes from. It's like, why is it always changing? Because I'm always putting what's best. We had mero cabrilla, right, grouper, which was over a mashed batata. And then it has over the top the avocado, papaya, onions, peppers, tomatoes, lime juice. That's just been a staple. That's just always been on the menu. The beef stew, which is just short rib, right, deboned, cleaned out. That meat just holds up together so nicely. Chayote salad, it's one of those things that I put down and I eat and then I can't stop eating it. It's got local honey and rice wine vinegar, olive oil, and then that mix is just cashews at the end and cilantro. It's just so fresh and it's clean. It's beautiful. I've got farmers that reach out to me and I, you pick certain people and you trust them blindly because they're all these, that's their same interest, so they're so proud about what they give you. So you're like, what do you have? Bring it. I don't even want to know. Let it be a surprise. You make your life a little bit harder because you have to look for it more, deliveries, work it out, work the deals out. It's not like somebody who puts anything on a truck and brings it to your restaurant. So that is a little harder, but once the product is here, it makes your life easier because I don't even have to touch it. It's so good. So there's that balance.
Hurricane Maria was tough for everyone. Like we had planted out all of our beds and everything was just starting to grow for the new season. And when I came back, it was just all gone, like vaporized. But it was really encouraging to see that our agroecological practices had really helped us bounce back really quickly. So even though the plants themselves had totally vaporized because of the hurricane, everything else was perfect. Like the beds were there, zero erosion. We didn't have to do anything. We just had to open up new holes and plant again.
So during Maria, there was a complete power loss. It's kind of hard to get food. What's laying around? Roots and tubers. How can I feed the most people fast and give them just, something substantial, give them protein? So that's what I did. But then afterwards, it actually became more like, this guy just made sancocho and it's off the charts. It's really good. Probably every land has a type of sancocho. It's a soup where you actually, you cut whatever's available, whether it's roots and tubers, and you put whatever meat you have around. It might be chicken, it might be some of your dry cured sausage, it might be some of your fresh sausage. If you have neighbors, you have people coming in, everybody will bring a little bit something to that soup. It's almost like, when you eat something that's nostalgic, that brings you to that place, your grandma or your neighbor, or that little stand next to you that you would always just feel it. When you ate that, it was just like, okay, it ended up being more like, wow, I'm actually comforting people with this. Pedro trajo su carne ahumada, que a mí me fascina. Y en ese pues estaban las viandas, entonces usamos ñame, había malangalila, Daniela tiene unas zanahorias que estaban bellas, tenía unos ajitos, tenía un poquito de apio, había apio, la verdura, que es mi favorita. Tenía muchos pimientos, tenía su tomate, cebolla, estaba llena de productos exquisitos. Tú sabes, y nada, ahí empezamos a echar poquito a poquito. A mí me gusta el ácido, yo lo terminé exprimiéndole uno que otro limón. Un poquito de sal, yo no hice nada. Yo eché esos productos en agua, hervir, le eché un poquito de sal, la lima y ya. No tuve que tocarlo. Porque estaban tan brutales los productos, estaban tan buenos.
It's actually not every day or ever that farmers get to sit down at the same table with chefs. I think those are conversations that need to happen more often.
Came out beautiful, eh? Sí. Came out, see, it's beautiful. Good.
In Puerto Rico, you always have the hot sauce. Like the heat is on the side.
That is correct.
But when you go throughout the Antillas, like the Antilles, like the food will be hot.
Right.
So for us being a colony, like a Spanish colony, it's like Spanish. So we were like, no, well then, we're gonna do something with it. So put it on the side.
Agriculture is very difficult. I really admire the generation. The last 10 years, we've seen a revival of agriculture from the generations of my son's age, around 30 years old to 40 years old. We didn't have that in the past, so they deserve a lot of credit and a lot of merit that they're bringing agriculture back.
We need to make this a viable business for young farmers to actually go out and produce more, because that's what we need, no?
We're tremendous consumers, as Puerto Ricans. As it is, I hear the behemoth of Amazon is doing like a daily a flight to Puerto Rico of how much stuff is being ordered.
But that's not by mistake. This is very much a calculated process. This is very much us being a colony. By definition, a colony is a resource extraction. So we are consumers by design. That this is not something that just happened. We have been put in this situation after generations and generations of being a colony. We've been a colony for what, 500 years now?
Just.
How much food is produced in Puerto Rico,
Yeah, I
10
think
to
we're-
15%.
I think we're higher than Hawaii, which is crazy. Hawaii imports like a lot, and we're like even higher than them. Like, but I think it'll change, you know, and it's like what you're doing and what we want to strive for. I said it before. I think that's what it is, you know.
Sí, I think it will change as soon as there is more support for this change to happen. For me, that was one of the most beautiful things to see from this hurricane, you know, really see people coming together, forget about whatever helps are coming or not coming or when they're coming. We need to do this ourselves, and we need to do
we
it
need
now.
to be aware of each other needs.
Sí.
What you need, what you need, what you need, what you need.
Puerto Rico, to me and to all of us, is the most beautiful place in the world. And I would never leave this little island anywhere in
neither
the
would I.
universe. And I
Me
traveled
neither.
the world.
Salud to
So
that.
this is, Puerto Rico is unique. Salud.
Salud to that.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah.